crisis is an opportunity, right? Everyone knows. But the question, the million-dollar question is how? How is this? How are we going to capture this opportunity? And I believe that any bad time will be over. Same for any good time. So, and at this season, I feel it's very crucial for us to have a step back, to calmly analyze our situation. Not only for our businesses, it's also for your job, it's also for our job. I think the crucial part is not in the MCO. The crucial part will be after the MCO. What would there be happen? And today I read an article in the Star. I thought that it's very interesting to share with you guys. Okay. I think everyone can see this article, right? Okay. This is an article conducted by a group of CEO from Vistage. Vistage is the professional CEO platform. It's an international platform where they conduct this interview throughout globally. And you look at the bottom right corner. Basically, the question we're asking, what were the top priority after the MCO? You look at number one is changing the business model. Second is e-commerce. The third is the strict credit control. And fourth is greater computerization of process. And next one is a better inventory management. Next one is along working from home, automation, flexi working hours. So can you see some of the opportunity, some of the keyword from these few words? Okay, the few keyword that we need to notice is business model. Second, e-commerce. Third is talk about liquidity. There's a liquidity problem in the market. And next one is talk about digitalization. Next one is talk about business automation. And last one, although it's mentioned flexi working hour, it also means that the business is now looking more for more outsourcing works, meaning that some of the job may be outsourced. So I think we should look at this perspective and try to analyze our job and our business. Okay, before I go any further, as today's topic is business and leadership transformation. But first, I want to define what is meant by improvement and transformation. For me, improvement is a must for everyone and for every businesses. If you're able to improve yourself every day by 1%, in 365 days, you are going to be a 37 times better. It means that you are going to have a transformation after 1 year. If you're able to improve every month 10%, by end of the year, you are going to be 2 times better. But in this crisis, after this crisis, some of us, we can't afford to have improvement. We need to have a transformation. It means that in a very short period of time, we need to improve more than 10% or even more than 50 to 100%. Okay, before that, I want to ask those who has the businesses about these 3 questions. Number 1 question is, how does this MCO affect your business? If your business fundamentals still remain the same. If your answer is yes, you type yes in the chat box. The second question is your market growing? In the past few years, is your market growing every year 10 to 20%? If your answer is yes, type in the chat box yes. The third question is your business disrupted by technology? Either right now or in the future. If your answer is no, then you type no. Same thing for those of you who are working employee. You know, if your company business fundamentals still remain the same, then your answer will be yes. Is your company business is growing? In fact, it's also directly impact on your career. You can also type yes. And is your job, will that eventually disrupt my technology? If it's no, then you type no. If your answer is yes, yes, and no, then I believe what we need is not transformation. What we need is an improvement. Why I say that, I'm going to explain it later. If your answer is no, no, and yes, and what we need and what you need is a real big transformation. Because after the COVID-19, what is going to happen is the adoption of the technology will be even faster. And people will be easier to adapt to all kinds of technology. I'm going to share with you a simple framework that I use this framework so intensively that allowed me to identify this business opportunity. Okay, I'm going to share the next screen. Okay, as I said, if let's say your answer is yes, yes, and no, it means that your business or your job, your company, the fundamental is still there. So what you need to do is just to focus. Focus on your market, focus on your customer, and for you who are working employee, become a mastery of what you are doing. You don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about what will happen after the COVID-19 because the market still has a huge demand on your product and services. And what you need to do is to be focused. But for those of you who has a different answer, then your market is streaming and your job or your business is going to be destroyed by the technology, then because it's nothing much you can change the economy because it's all about supply and demand. When the demand is going down, and we all know that we cannot beat economy. And that is a framework for us to look at the expansion. But when we look at expansion, we don't want to simply do diversification. We want to have a structured thinking about where should we expand. Same thing for some of you here. For some of you who are working employee, if we want to grow, you also must have a structured thinking, a direction where you want to grow and learn. If your company, your key competitive advantages is your customer, then I would think that your next transformation will be offer new product or new services to your existing customer. Like what I did 10 years ago, I know that my competitive advantages is my cement trading business, those customers, and that's where I venture into 10 different building material manufacturing services, many building material manufacturing factory that offering all kinds of building material to the same group of customers. So it's all about how are we going to increase per customer profitability. So meaning that 10 over years ago, I only making maybe 100 from this contractor. My strategy is all about in the 2-year time, what am I going to make 500 from the same customer? Same thing like for your businesses also, if your existing market is streaming, then it's for you to think of how can you provide more services and more product to your customer. And for those, working employee, and it's also time for you right now and in the future to learn new skill through online learning. As I shared, as I shared, the keyword that I mentioned just now from the CEO interview, you remember the digitalization and business automation, more outsourcing job. What does that mean? It means that potentially your job can be replaced by technology. So potentially, if let's say you are doing the administrative work in your company, 3 months later, your job may be taken over by a computer. And for then, what you need to do now? Then your strategy is to learn out those new skills related to robotic process automation. And then you can provide these new services, a skill to your company. Otherwise, the first person that your company is going to ask to leave is you. Because you see, your company will then look at the technology is very different from 3 months ago. 3 months ago, a lot of companies may think that technology is still not necessity. But now, everyone is going for e-commerce. Everyone is going for digitalization. Everyone is going for automation. It became a norm. If you don't follow the trend, you are disrupted. Not only your businesses, also your job. If let's say your company competitive advantages is your product. Your product can be your skill, your marketing capability, your showroom. If you know that your key competitive advantages is your existing product, then your expansion should be thinking for expand to downstream. Before that, you may be B2B business model. A new thinking can be you may want to go into B2C using e-commerce platform. And of course, you know, when we are serving more customers, you may want to think of how are we going to leverage on technology. What I mentioned here, flying wheel, is, you know, as you know that some businesses, the more people you're hiring, the quality of your services will be reduced. By leveraging of technology, your quality of your services is consistent. And for those of you, you know, then for the individual, then you may start to think of how am I going to expand our circle of influence. Your customer can be your company employee. You may be in the supporting department. You may be, you know, in the sales marketing department where serving external customer. Whoever your customer is, now it's also a time for you to look at how am I going to expand your circle of influence. You know, because you see another keywords. You know, you remember you saw in the article about more flexi hour, more work from home. It also means that now the company start thinking that I don't need full-time employee. I can outsource my job to some of the people who work from home. So to some of you here, there might be a risk to your job. Your company may not want to have a fixed overhead. Then he may want to looking at more, you know, flexi working hour, some of the outsourcing job outside. So if let's say you are not able to do multitask, not able to solve a bigger problem in your company business, maybe in not too long ago, the first person the company will want you to leave is you. Okay, let's say expanding to the new customer, new product still couldn't change. For example, you may be in some of the media industry or some of the hotel, the industry is going to disrupt, the business is going to disrupt by technology, then you then only consider a diversification. Of course, when we look at the diversification, to me, my number one criteria is because you are going into a totally new businesses, require new skill, new customer. Number one criteria is this an attractive market for you to go in? If you go into the market, it's not growing. You know, if you go into a new market where the demand is not growing every year 10%, you cannot change economy. You know, if you're going to a new market where the demand is growing every year 10, 20%, by simply running the business, you will also success. let's just go example. If today you are selling sanitizer, if you are in the manufacturing business and manufacturing some of the medication product, you know, without hire a good salespeople, your product can sell by itself because the market is growing. If today you are in the e-commerce business, of course, your market is growing. If today you are in the renewable energy business, it's growing. So for me, about many years ago, I also ventured into diversification. The two business that is diversified from my building material business is property development and solar construction. You know, you can see that solar construction and property development business is high entry barrier and high growth business and high profitability. So the moment I ventured into those sectors, when the markets grow, I won't be too bad. So, and of course, if your company, for some of you individual, if your company after the COVID-19 potentially can be destroyed by technology, and I feel that it's time for you to explore for new job. You know, it may not be too bad sometimes for a new job. Simply because we cannot change economy. You know, many years ago, for those who work in the CD, who are selling the CD, you know, shop, you know, you cannot change the economy, you cannot change the supply and demand. So eventually, that business is going to disrupt by the technology. So I think right now, it's not about panic, it's about rational analyze our job. Rational analyze our industry, our business. If our business, our job still relevant after 6 months, 1 year, then it's for us to become a mastery, to be very good in what we are. Instead of thinking of doing diversification or looking for new customer or provide new services and product. And yeah, so that's where my sharing is. So I believe that I want to open more time for those of you who have questions. Of course, I also feel that the strategy for the business, whether for manpower deduction or for salary deduction or whatever, is very depend on your business. You need to ask yourself, if your business still relevant after 3 months, 6 months, then it's better for you to think how are you going to keep your talent. If your business is not relevant, very competitive, you may face the survival issue, then it's better for you to act fast and have a big change. Not only salary deduction, you may want to go into retrenchment. So, and of course, for those of you, you think it's still relevant, then you may want to change your performance management policy to even encourage your key team to even work harder after the COVID-19 or even after the MCO. Okay, that's all my sharing. Okay, I pass it to who?
Yeah, I'm here, Haw Choon. I'll be kind of taking over the Q&A session and kind of bounce back questions to you and have that conversation with you. Now we've got a question here in Slido, and I think we should leave this chart on the screen here because I think it's a very relevant chart where I think some of our focus and questions should be based on this particular chart that you are sharing or this structure that you are sharing here right now. We've got a question here from Alpha. When you venture into a new diversification or expanding horizontally to downstream, how do you know when to scale or continue or stop? I think the nature of the question is when you want to try new things, when you want to change new things, how do you know when to stop, to scale up, or to continue?
Okay. I think the first thing I realized when talk about for my situation, because 10 over years ago, my father was running a cement trading business. So I feel that I don't have a long-term competitive advantages. And I feel I want to grow. My market is very limited. So that's where I ventured into building material manufacturing business. Of course, it's not all building material manufacturing business is relevant. I also going into the field building material manufacturing business is very relevant to the country. Like I venture into infrastructure manufacturing business where we manufacturing all kind of precast work for highway, for railway, for sewage system, and that is a very important component for a developing country like us. So until today, I still have a high order book for those business segments. Of course, I also venture into those very niche building material where we use an innovative AAC block that we want to disrupt the clay market. Of course, for us, when we want to look at the new expansion, either new product, new services, we also must have a strategy. It's not that everything can do. You must also go to the customer who has a high expenditure so that you can make more from that customer. If some of your customers are very, functional purchase, then you may need to think, by when providing this new product and services, will this my existing customer buy from me? So that also must have a strategy when we want to looking at the expansion. Never I believe we cannot again economy. It must going to the product or a customer or a new expansion that has a high growth. Yeah.
Got it. So it sounds like when you venture into new streams of business and all that, it sounds to me that you are doing a lot of research on data and analysis of what's in the market, what can the market be, what does the market need, what are the solutions that is needed in the market. So those data and those research and those understanding is very key and vital in order for us to make those decisions. Am I right to say that, Haw Choon?
Yes.
Yeah. What are some of the steps that you do to have this kind of research and this kind of information? What do you do when you do research? Maybe you can share some of your practices and some of the key things that you use in order to study the businesses around you for you to expand.
Okay. Perhaps I shared the other slide that I know I have shared earlier. Okay. Okay, a simple article. I do not know for some of you here what opportunity you see. But for me, I see opportunity. You look at the top priority of CEO after the MCO. The few keyword that is actually came up. One of the keyword is digitalization. A second keyword is business automation. A third keyword will be more outsourcing job. And what does it mean for some of us? So it also means for some of us, one of the key skills that you need to master is the robotic processes automation. There will be a high demand for this kind of skill. So it also means that, for some of you who are in sales and marketing department, it's a key skill for you to understand what is meant by online and offline offering. And it also means that, and for after the MCO, for businesses that going for e-commerce, in fact, it's a norm. It doesn't make you different or make you better because it became a market norm. So that's where that for some of this, we can actually identify the opportunity. But how am I going to identify the opportunity? First, we need to have a direction. You just imagine, if today, first day you're driving your new car, Toyota, you came to realize on the road there are many Toyota. Why am I able to identify there are so many Toyota? Because you see, we only pay attention to those that are relevant to us. If one of your everyday goal is to exploring, and you are very curious for new opportunity, new trend, you never will find a lot of opportunity. About a couple of years ago, I ventured into solar construction. And solar construction, of course, a couple of years ago is not as popular as right now. But I already see the trend. It's a very obvious opportunity that is going to be a future for the country. So, but a lot of people see the opportunity, but a lot of people dare not step up from the comfort zone. So that's what I feel. It's not difficult to identify the opportunity. The most difficult part are we willing to step a step out from our comfort zone? You know, learning new thing, trying new thing always come with the risk. You know, you may fail and there are a lot of uncertainty. So for me to accept, you know, you are going to fail and not giving up, to try and try again, and that is very crucial. Yeah, because new opportunity also mean new risk, new failure, right?
Yeah. There's a question. There's just a request here. Haw Choon, if you could share and repeat that 3 questions you started the session today, the one that you asked for the yes, yes, no. Can you give us the first question first? And I would ask the virtual support to prepare and type that into the chat box right now. So Haw Choon, what's the first question that you asked just now?
After MCO, if your business fundamental still remain the same.
Okay. Got it. So after MCO, is your business fundamentals still remain the same? Okay. What's the second question?
Is your market growing?
Is your market growing? Awesome. Third question.
The third question is your business or your job eventually will be disrupted by technology?
Okay. Would your business or job be disrupted by technology? So there are the 3 questions, right? That's the 3 questions there. We've got another question here. It's about your personal journey in venturing to new industry and learning new things and doing new things. Especially when you enter the solar businesses, what were some of the challenges that you faced?
When coming to diversification, when coming to a business that I'm not familiar, I prefer to going for acquisition. You know, that's where my strategy is. And same thing for my property development. The first expansion we have also partnership. Yeah, slowly then we venture into full ownership. Because when come into the total new diversification, is something every business is different. You know, today I'm selling I'm building material, but to a lot of people selling building material is all the same, but it's different. So even selling a different precast product is also require different skill and different capability. So that's what I mean. That's what I feel. I think number one is acquire a right capability. When I say acquire a right capability, also have a right talent and also have a right skill.
Awesome. So basically leveraging on resources and leveraging on other people who have the expertise, and you invest in them and you bring them on board as a team member. Basically, you cannot do this alone. You shouldn't do this alone because it doesn't work by yourself, because there's so much things to learn and it's too slow to do it by yourself unless you have the right partners in place, the right talents in place. So basically, as a business leader, I assume one of the key things that you do every day is to look for talent. I think that's probably one of the things that you do. Now, I've got a different gear here. I want to just go shift. So that because in our audience here, there are a lot of people who potentially are also employees in young working adults as well. And this is the first time they're going through potentially a major crisis in the economic markets. In this season or this journey for you, your company, Haw Choon, and you talk a lot about reinventing yourself. I'm sure you are looking at your own businesses as well, doing all this alteration, changing and thinking about it. How do you communicate with your staff right now and set certain expectations to them? Because you mentioned just now, people need to have better skills, need to look at digitization. How do you then communicate that direction to your staff right now and set the expectation for them in this new season?
When the beginning of MCO, I actually quiet for about 3 weeks. You know, I put all my effort and time, morning until evening. It's all about learning. It's all about acquiring new skill, new knowledge. And then right now, I almost complete my 6 or 9 courses, because I know that, without a new perspective, I'm not able to strategize. I'm not able to look at this crisis, calmly and from a different angle. So after the first 3 weeks, and then the fourth and fifth week, I started to communicate, with all my HOD and with all my CEO and to brainstorming about the execution. And right now it's all about action, action, action. There's a time for everything. When there's time for learning, there's a time for action. When I focus on action, I very focused. So I think for the communication side, first we need to know our communication skill. You cannot follow my communication skill. I cannot follow your Jordan communication. Everyone's different. If you follow my communication skill, you will fail. Because you see, my approach is a bit dialective. My approach is a bit challenge, command. So, and then I want fast. So that kind of approach is may not suitable to everyone. Perhaps for some of us here, first we need to identify our communication skill, and then we basically learn a new skill to complement our weaknesses and our strength. So for me, I need to become a more listener. I'm weak, but I'm good in action. I'm good in execution. So that's what by learning my communication skill, I believe it doesn't help everyone here, right?
Yep.
But first thing, my advice is first understand your communication skill and find a way to enhance what you're good at, and find someone or in your company to complement your weaknesses. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for answering that question. Now, as you are reinventing, it sounds to me that you are very fast-paced in making decisions. You go forward very fast. You want to be first in the line. You want to be ahead a lot of times. Now, what are some of the qualities? And I think today in this current market, we need different qualities of people in our teams. What are some of the qualities that you look for when you are hiring right now? What are some of the qualities in people that you're looking for if you're hiring right now?
I think, of course, you see, every hiring is a bet. No matter how good you are, you will never not able to identify a person capability through 3 to 6 interview. There is so much that we can know about the person through half an hour to 1 hour interview. So I have my wish list that, what kind of talent that I want. But throughout many years of bringing, interview a lot of people, what I have learned is, sometimes we cannot get the perfect person. Sometimes we just need to, leverage on the strength of whatever of my team or a new hiring, and then slowly build out the person. At the beginning of my hiring, I very I want perfect person. I have made a lot of time. I feel it lah. So right now today, for me, I will very much rely on the track record because you see, I believe you can't really know a person through the interview. So my approach is, to ask around, to ask the industry, what is the track record of the person, whether the person has the right integrity. This is a number one key thing. Whether the person is a teamwork person, and this kind of thing lah. Yeah. So I think hiring for character is very important.
So you focus on character and you do a lot of cross-reference with people, right? To make sure that they are the right fit in culture and also the right fit in your model and your system that you are putting in, because it sounds like you are very directive, and that kind of is like you mentioned, some people may not fit into that kind of environment. So you do that a lot. So that's good. That's good. There's a few questions here in the Slido. As a developer, it's a very interesting question. I think this is a good question that leads to that potentially could be disruption in this area. As a developer, do you see the function of your salespeople will be less relevant and you will deploy more digital or virtual efforts in selling or marketing properties right
now? This one, when we are buying a house, it's a big ticket purchase because we are going to finance it in the next 10, 20, 30 years. So I believe that people who want still have a feel, to visit your showroom. So I believe that it will be a combination of online and offline models. You will use the online model to bring the people to your showroom and to close it there. So I believe that, in the next 10, 20 years, I don't think that we'll go everything online. Anyone, I believe that 100% of people here who buy a house, you wouldn't buy a house through online.
Yep.
You want to visit, have a feel, whether you go to the showroom, you can smell something or not, because you know that big part of your salary, you're going to finance for that big ticket item.
Yep.
Normally for that kind of purchase, we tend to be a little bit more cautious.
Yep. Yep. So basically, what you're saying is that potentially the buyer's experience may start virtually first, but they still require that physical element of being there and having that trust on someone that they can see that someone that will be there to serve them in case anything happens, because it's a very big ticket item. Unless there is that barrier being broken, which I think I agree with you, about 10, 20 years, you don't see that happening. But those developers or sellers that do not adopt virtual environment or virtual activities, they may need to change that right now, because everyone wants to start virtual first. Am I right to say that? Okay, good. How do you see, since we're talking about property right now, how do you see the current property future right now? How do you see that? What's your take on this right now?
Since it's a big ticket item purchase, when come into bad time, people will have a bit more cautious when buying a big ticket item, because we do not know whether our job is secure. That's one thing that we are not sure. This is $1 million for every employee that want to know, will my job be secure?
Yep.
As you look at the survey, a lot of CEO already looking at business automation. When there's more automation, what does that mean? It means that your job will be no longer secure.
Absolutely.
So, and the business is going down, and the bonus is uncertain. So I think this year wouldn't be a good year for property development. Yeah.
Yes, totally agree with you, as I'm in the same industry. I see that as well. The uncertainty is the one that is influencing the behavior of the purchasers in the market right now. Yeah. So I think that's so true. How do you look at the outlook of building and construction industry moving forward?
I think in the construction building, in the construction business, there are two segments. One is a housing, one is infrastructure. So for me, in my field, in my industry, I want to focus on infrastructure segment. And I feel that, our infrastructure is still very much behind. Like look at our sewage system, our water system. As a country like us, Malaysia, we still have water issue. We still have physical issue. So I believe that there's still a huge demand for this infrastructure segment, and there will be more highways going to build, more railway going to build. That's an opportunity that I see.
Yeah, and I also think that government is probably going to stimulate the economy through infrastructure efforts, because that's the number one thing that most of all the time that governments would look at in terms of stimulating the market. Yeah, absolutely right. What are the preparations and adjustments that building industry players need to do in order to face the challenges and to seize the new potentials?
I feel that is going back to my framework that I shared earlier. First we need to analyze our business, because every business is very different. So, and like for example, for my solar business, I think for us it's all about focus. Focus on our existing product, existing customer, because our business still relevant after 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So for me, it's about focus. But for some of my businesses, I may want to look at reinvent, the way we're running our business, and leverage technology, and potential looking at how we're going to leverage on the platform to provide more product and services to our customer. And potentially, we may also leverage on the platform that to identify a new customer for my business. So it's basically, go back to my framework that I shared earlier to really analyze our situation and make a right decision.
So it does look like, based on your sharing and what some of the things that we are also experiencing right now, it does look like upskilling and innovating is now an important criteria for organizations to survive. How do you then organize your team to have that mindset of innovation and upskilling all the time? Because it's not easy, right? Because a lot of our businesses, potentially, some of the SMEs may not have that the perspective or the exposure to learn how to be more innovative and upskilling. What would your advice be to keep that team always innovating and upskilling?
I think every business want to upskill. Every business want to be innovative. But the $1 million question is how.
Yeah.
The how. Everyone know that crisis is an opportunity, but how? So there's no other way except for learning. So that's why I took so much time for online learning. I wouldn't know how to innovate until I learn, or until I met someone who can increase my exposure. So that's what that I feel is a good time for us in this road now season. Take the opportunity to upskill ourselves. There are a lot of free, affordable online courses for us, to have a new exposure. Because you see, there's nothing coming in, there will be nothing coming out. We cannot be innovative unless we have a new knowledge, a new framework. So no other way. And same thing for some of us here who are working employee, we cannot innovate until we know how. But how to know how? The only way is to learn. Yep.
Okay, there are a lot of questions coming in right now, but I want to take a few that's relevant to that particular questions now. Is there any relevant courses online right now that you would like to recommend to our audience here today?
Yeah, I will share that later. Yeah, I will share that.
Okay, good. There's a question here from probably a startup. I'm currently an employee, but I have a business idea outside my field. How do I get funding to start it? It is very risky to start as there's not much financial base on myself, I believe. But what are your suggestions to get funding to start a new business right now?
When you want to get the funding, it depends on which phases you are in, which phases of the business. If you are in the business, if you're in the phases where you only have a new idea, then you may want to offer whatever, to get the funding by offering your equity share. Because you got no choice. Your payout capital may be 1 million. You may need to offering 50% at 500,000. So if let's say you are in the phases where you already have 3-year track record, and in the past 3 years your growth is 30%. You may have a position to asking for premium. You may do a graph, let your potential investor know that, okay, from 3 years from now, based on my growth, based on whatever factor, I'm going to worth 5 million. Then with that, maybe you can sell for premium, right? So, and that is the only way to evaluate your valuation, company valuation. But I have seen a lot of people right now, they only have a business idea. It's just an idea, but they're asking for sky-high valuation. To me, if a company without the track record, the chances of success is zero. Because you don't have a track record, the chances of success is zero. So you will not have any $1 of valuation unless you have a good executor where you in this industry working for 10, 20 years, you are so good in this subject, then you may asking for a valuation. If not, a business idea is just an idea. to me, sometimes idea is just a dream lah. Until you put into the plan, until you come up with a prototype and test for it.
Yeah. And that's probably why you will definitely require expertise in that field to be part of that team. So basically, where the investors look at investment in the company, they don't look at the idea alone. They look at the team and who is executing it and what's the plan and what's the outcome that they potentially could see. I think that's where I think a lot of people need to understand that it's not about just the idea, it's about the people, it's about a lot of things that's going on in the business. So thank you for sharing that. Now let's switch gears a little bit at Haw Choon. Based on current situation of this kind of current crisis where a lot of companies are reinventing themselves and all that, what are some of your suggestions to employees here right now? How can they step up and add value to their company right now? What are your suggestions?
Okay, if let's say we ourselves don't have a value, no way that we can add value to others. You know, a beggar can no way add value to you because he has no value added to you. So today, if we want to add value to others, first we need to have a value first. We need to learn out the new skill. We need to learn out the subject of leadership or whatever new skill, AI, big data. Then we can only add value to our organization. You know, everyone wants to add value to our organization, but some of us here, we don't have value to add. You know, so to me, now, since it is the time for us to stay at home, it also means that a time for us to spend time with the people we love, and also a time for us to learn out a new subject, a new skill, you know, through online learning. I think that is because that is, I feel this is an opportunity. It's called a window of opportunity. If you're able to learn fast enough, after lockdown, you're going to overtake, you know, your colleague. You're going to overtake many people around you. It's a window of opportunity. If you don't grab this, you know, you're going to lose it. Because after the lockdown, it's all about action and execution, action and execution. They no longer have so much ample time for you to sit in the house and to learn.
Wow. I had an aha moment just now when you said that if you want to add value to someone or something or some organization, you first must have value. That is a big aha moment, guys. If you are watching and listening to this right now, this should be that aha moment for you guys here. If you want to add value to your organization and to the people around you, you better first have value and acquire that value and increase that value. I think that's a good piece of advice, especially to everyone, including the employers and employees, including business owners as well. Maybe I have got time for one last question before I pass the time back to Eugene. One last question. And this is, I think, a very critical question. And those who have more questions right now, don't worry, stay back for the hangout time later. We will have a hangout session right after Eugene takes over, but don't worry, stay back. But I've got this last question I think I must ask you. This is a very good question. How do you now manage your time as a father, as a husband, as an employer, as a businessman, and on top of that, still continuing that learning-based behavior? How do you do it?
I think it's all about setting goal, you know. Without setting goal, I wouldn't be spending time for others, you know. I wouldn't be involved in community work. I wouldn't be spending time with my children, all this. Because you see, a lot of things we just need to do it intentionally. You know, without doing intentionally, I don't think that I'll be doing. How are we going to do it intentionally? First, we need to know our responsibility. By knowing our responsibility, then we will then know that it's a necessary for us to set the goal, to spend time with the people we love, to spend time with our sibling, to spend time with our cousin, to spend time for our community work, to spend time for others. So I think it's all about started with intentional. So and then some of us here may feel, hey, then you are not being ourselves. Of course, being ourselves, I just want to share with you, 20 over years ago, being myself, I was a gangster. In myself, I continue to be a gangster. Yeah. But intentionally, I want to be a different person. So that's where I become. So for some of us here is, you know, first, we need to know our responsibility and set the goal and live intentionally.
Wow. Set that goal and live intentionally to live a very fulfilling life. That's such a good nugget of wisdom right now. How many of you are enjoying this session? If you're enjoying this session, say yes right now. Say yes in the chat box right now. I'm enjoying it very much. All right, look at that. Yeses. Now, don't worry. We are going to come back here for a hangout session. There are many questions here that you can still ask. We are just starting up firing up this session to have that interaction. I'm going to pass the time right now to Eugene to do some announcements. Then we will come back to you for a hangout session. Go ahead, Eugene.
Right. Thank you, Haw Choon and John, for this session. I think Haw Choon is not someone who just talks, but he is really someone who lives out whatever he says. And because he adds value to himself, he's able to add value to us today. And I think the theme that I caught from Haw Choon's sharing was we must identify where we are at to be able to know what action we need to take next. And he shared a framework that is excellent for business owners. And I want to add on to that to share a framework that is for employees to help evaluate whether your job has value. I'm going to share my screen right now. And this framework is basically by an AI expert called Dr. Lee Kai-Fu. You can Google it, Lee Kai-Fu AI quadrant. And it tells us, depends on what job you are at, how you will be impacted by AI. So let's say you are customer support, you are a dishwasher or truck driver. With this COVID that comes in, it will speed up this AI replacement process, and it tells you based on which job you are at, how AI will interact with you. So I want to encourage everybody, if you are someone concerned on your job, please check this out, Lee Kai-Fu AI Quadrant, to sort of evaluate where you are and how you will be impacted by this digitalization and by AI. Okay, that's all for me from today. We're going to have a short break.